This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy. We go deep and lightly surface the big ideas.
All right, let's dive in. We're looking into something called Hyperacute Outer Retinal Dysfunction. HORD.
Yeah, elder.
Scary stuff, sudden vision loss in kids, and you guys want to know more about it. So we've got this research from JAMA Ophthalmology, right?
Right.
And then there's this Perplexity AI thing talking about, is it connected to COVID?
Potentially, yeah.
So let's try to figure this out.
Well, the JAMA article, it starts with this case study. A 6-year-old girl in China, she loses her vision just like that after a fever.
Right.
And it really highlights what makes HORD. It comes on so suddenly.
Usually after a fever.
Yeah. It affects both eyes. And it messes with very specific parts of the retina.
Like what?
You've got the ellipsoid zone and the external limiting membrane.
Okay, so 8 kids in the study.
8 kids, 16 eyes.
16 eyes, all with severe vision loss after a fever. That's pretty scary. But they got better, right? The article said they recovered.
Most of them did, yeah. Their central vision, it improved a lot within a year. But here's the thing. Their electroretinography, their ERG.
ERG.
It stayed abnormal.
So even though their vision was getting better, something wasn't quite right.
Right.
What is an ERG, by the way?
It's like, it measures the electrical activity in the retina.
Okay.
So it tells us how well those cells are actually working.
So even though they could see better, something was still off in how their retinas were actually functioning.
Exactly.
Huh. Unsettling. The researchers, did they figure out what caused it?
Well, they didn't find any clear infections or autoimmune problems.
In most of the kids.
Right.
Okay, so no easy answers. But there was that part about 2 kids testing positive for some kind of antibodies.
Anti-retinal antibodies.
That mean it's autoimmune?
It could, but it wasn't a consistent finding across all the cases. And ERDIA is different from other retinal conditions we know about, like MUWDs or Azor.
How so?
It's much more severe, always in both eyes, and it progresses way faster. Oh, and it specifically happens in children.
All right. So we've got this new eye condition. It hits kids hard, and we don't know what causes it. Sounds like a medical mystery, right? But then we add in this Perplexity AI analysis, and suddenly COVID is part of the picture.
Right.
Is there really a connection between COVID and HORD?
Well, Perplexity came up with 5 possible ways they could be connected.
5. Okay, well, maybe let's just focus on a couple of the most impactful ones for now.
Sure. So first, we know that COVID can trigger like a huge immune response.
Yeah.
It's often an overreaction leading to inflammation all over the body, and that could damage the retina.
So the body's trying to fight off the virus.
Right.
But it ends up attacking the eye.
Yeah, kind of like friendly fire.
And then there's the whole thing with COVID and blood vessels.
Yeah, COVID can really mess them up, causing inflammation and clots.
Right.
And if the blood flow to the retina gets disrupted, well, it needs that blood to function.
So those 2 things, the immune system overreacting and the blood vessel damage, those seem like the most likely culprits.
They're definitely high on the list. And what's scary is that those are 2 areas where COVID can have long-term effects.
You mean even after a kid recovers from the virus?
Exactly. The damage might still be there months or even years later.
Wow. Okay, so an overactive immune response and damage to blood vessels potentially triggered by COVID. What's the biggest takeaway here for you?
I think it's that COVID's impact on the body could be a lot wider and longer lasting than we thought.
We can't just focus on when they're actually sick.
Right.
We need to be looking at what happens later on, especially for kids.
Exactly.
So this could mean that COVID is affecting kids' vision long after they've recovered.
Yeah.
That's a pretty scary thought. What about treatment, though? Can doctors help these kids?
Well, right now there isn't a cure, unfortunately. The JAMA article mentioned that the kids in the study, they got immunosuppressive treatments.
Immunosuppressive.
Yeah, things like corticosteroids and IVOG. It's basically trying to calm down the immune system.
So if HORD is caused by the immune system overreacting, like we were talking about,
right,
then maybe calming it down could protect the retina.
Exactly. But the study didn't actually prove that these treatments work specifically for HORD.
Got it. So more research is needed there.
Yeah, definitely.
But what about helping these kids adapt to vision loss? I mean, that's Got to be tough, right?
Oh, absolutely. It can be really hard for the kids and their families. That's why supportive care is so important.
Supportive care, what does that involve?
Things like vision rehabilitation,
Okay.
occupational therapy, even assistive devices. These can make a huge difference in helping these kids, live their lives.
To be more independent.
Exactly. To be able to do the things they enjoy. And of course, the families need support too.
Yeah, a diagnosis like this, it's got to be overwhelming.
For sure, they need counseling, support groups, resources, to help them cope.
It sounds like we're just starting to understand HORD. What are some of the big questions that still need to be answered?
Well, first of all, we need to know for sure what causes it.
Right. Is it a virus? Autoimmune? Something else entirely?
We need to solve that puzzle before we can really treat it effectively.
And then there's the whole COVID question.
Yeah, if there is a link, how strong is it?
Does it affect every kid who's had COVID or just some of them?
Those are important questions. And we need to know about the long-term effects too.
The JAMA study only looked at 1 year, right?
Right. So we need to track these kids for longer and see what happens.
Okay. Sounds like we've got a lot more to learn. Where do we go from here?
I think collaboration is key.
Between
Researchers, doctors, patient advocacy groups, everyone needs to work together, share information,
do more studies.
raise awareness.
And I imagine doctors are really important in all this, right?
They are. They're the ones seeing these kids, noticing any patterns.
Yeah, they could be the ones to find new cases of HORD.
Exactly. It's a real partnership. It's fascinating to see this all unfold.
It really is. It's like watching science in action.
Yeah.
But speaking of breakthroughs, there was that part in the JAMA article about those 2 kids with the antibodies.
The anti-retinal antibody.
Yeah, could that be a big deal?
It could be huge. Those specific antibodies, anti-PKC gamma and anti-Re.
They don't usually show up in other retinal conditions.
Right. So if they turn out to be specific to HORD, that changes everything.
Like how?
Well, think of them like biomarkers.
Biomarkers, remind me what those are again.
They're like clues, They're things we can measure that tell us something's happening in the body.
So if these antibodies are only found in kids with HORD, then finding them in a blood test could be like a warning sign.
Exactly. It could mean earlier and more accurate diagnosis, and that means getting treatment sooner.
So potentially better outcomes for these kids.
Hopefully. And it doesn't stop there. Understanding these antibodies could lead to new treatments.
Okay. Like what?
Well, imagine if we could develop something that specifically targets those antibodies. Stop them from attacking the retina.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. So we could actually prevent vision loss.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Of course, we need more research to confirm all of this and develop those treatments.
Right.
But it's definitely a promising lead.
It sounds like we could be on the verge of a big breakthrough in harrowing diagnosis and treatment.
It's possible.
All because of these antibodies.
Yeah, they could be the key.
And it's a good reminder that even with a medical mystery like this, there's always hope.
Absolutely. There's always hope, and science is always moving forward.
So we've talked about the symptoms, what might cause haterine, and even some potential treatments. But let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
What does all this mean, like, for public health? How does this change how we think about kids and their eye care?
Well, those are big questions, and to be honest, we're still figuring a lot of that out. I mean, the JAMA study, it only looked at 8 kids.
Right, all from China.
Exactly. So we need bigger studies to really understand how common HORD is, especially in other parts of the world.
So there could be more cases out there.
It's definitely possible, and that's concerning, especially with the whole COVID connection.
Yeah, if even a small number of kids who had COVID end up with HORD, that's a lot of kids potentially.
It is, and that's why awareness is so important. Doctors need to know about HORD.
So they can catch it early.
Right. The earlier we diagnose it, the sooner we can start treatment.
And maybe prevent more vision loss.
Exactly. And thinking about COVID, maybe we should be checking the eyes of any kid who's had the virus.
Even if they don't have any symptoms.
Yeah, I think it's better to be safe than sorry. But beyond those immediate steps, what about the long term? How do we handle conditions like this in the future?
What needs to change?
Well, I think we need a multi-pronged approach. First of all, research. We need more research.
To figure out the cause.
Right, because until we know what causes HORD, finding the right treatment is going to be really, really hard.
Okay, research makes sense. But what about the kids who already have HORD? How do we help them?
Right, and that brings us to the second part, access to care. Every kid, no matter who they are or where they live, should be able to get the eye care they need.
No matter how much money their family has or where they live.
Exactly. We need to make sure there aren't any barriers.
So it's really about a whole new way of thinking about kids' vision.
It is. It's about prevention.
Early detection.
And long-term support.
Yeah.
Making sure kids' eyes are healthy right from the start. And that includes educating parents.
Wanting to know how important eye exams are.
Especially if their child has had COVID.
Because vision is so important.
It is. It's something we take for granted until we start to lose it. And for kids, their vision it's even more crucial. They're still learning and growing.
This whole deep dive, it really shows the power of science. Asking questions, wanting to learn more. It's pretty inspiring.
It is, and it shows that even with something like HORD, something new and scary, there's still hope. With research, with good care, with parents and doctors working together, we can make a difference for these kids.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, we hope this has been helpful. Keep asking questions, stay informed, and speak up for kids' health. You can make a difference.
Your voice matters.
Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.